Oh my mother, oh my mother, oh my mother, family. Breaking news at the last minute, just as I was telling you on the main Sport Maniaticos channel, it is very possible, according to what I had heard, that this story goes through several stages, and the first stage was that Red Bull could give Lawson a second chance. This is what we are seeing at the last minute. This is very fresh news from both the Relevo website, which has been cited a lot for this information, and also La Nacion, which we know is very active. You can watch previous videos on the official Sport Maniatico channel where you will see all this information, for example, this one, or for example, the last one we made, which contains this latest information I'm telling you about, where it became clear that everything fits. Now comes the era, the moment in the story, it seems, where confusion will arise. Don't be thrown off by anything, because all of this simply depends on the investigations we've done, and it's coming through to the millimeter. It looks like the Franco and Colapinto Racing Bulls thing is serious, and there are just some internal matters to discuss within Red Bull, and in addition, maybe a second chance for Lawson in Japan and in Racing Bulls. Welcome to Sport Maniaticos, the YouTube Formula 1 channel of Alberto from Sport Maniaticos. Stay, enjoy, and give a super big like for everything that we, all the Sport Maniaticos, are working on with this information. We're on it 24/7, checking everything to see where we can get the news to pass on to you, so that you can be better informed. Because yes, the future of Franco Colapinto is on the move, and I know that the Red Bull situation from last time was a letdown. Nobody confirmed anything. For example, at Sport Maniaticos, the Alpine news did come true. And here many people might be led to think, because of what happened in the past, that is also a letdown. This has nothing to do with a letdown, at least from what I interpret. Obviously, there has been a change of plans with everything related to Alpine. And you should know that many people are wondering, what about Briatore? Briatore has absolutely everything under control. Everything will go through him. And at the same time, everything will go through Uncle James. This would be like a stopgap for Colapinto, hopefully in the short term, because both Alpine 2026, where I was told Colapinto would race there, would not have the greatest possibilities. We will see if this whirlwind also diverts that from its path. No doubt these are times of speculation and uncertainty, where I insist you must verify your sources well. La Nacion is moving a lot. It seems quite on point, and I want to read with you what is being said in Relevo and La Nacion, because Red Bull is thinking twice, considering giving one extra life to Lawson while cooling down Franco Colapinto. I mentioned it in the last video. This looks like it could come true. It seems very credible. Obviously, it's not a direct source telling us this, so I can't confirm it 100%, but little by little my doubts are disappearing more, especially with this news. You might say, but Alberto, this news goes the other way. And I'd say, it was the news we Sport Maniaticos were expecting at the beginning of the week, which seems to be what we have to live with. Then we'll see what happens later. The thing is, and I'm not so sure about this, will it be for Japan? Will it be postponed, as is being said here, to more complicated Grand Prix, like Saudi Arabia? Will it be in Bahrain? We'll move from square to square until the date we were all expecting, which is Miami. For now, we continue with the next chapter, which says this. The Argentine emerged yesterday as an option for the Racing Bulls seat, as a result of Yuki Tsunoda's promotion alongside Verstappen. Red Bull didn't hesitate. As soon as the checkered flag in the Chinese Grand Prix waved, they picked up the phone. That call, made through its affiliate team Racing Bulls, had a single objective: for Franco Colapinto to get into the white single-seater in Japan, as Relevo, that website that provides this information, and Motorsport, practically the most reliable source related to Formula 1, had already reported. The first step in the operation was to prepare the suit for the driver at the center of that relatively urgent request. You see, we talked about the suit, the race suit, etc. in the previous video, actually in that one, not in this one, and note that it says a suit that at this hour is still being tailored, so that it fits the Argentine like a glove, just like with every Formula 1 driver. The fact that the order is still being processed, that it hasn't been stopped, perfectly reflects the change of direction that has occurred in the last few hours. And in spite of the initial contacts yesterday, Sunday, according to what this media outlet, Relevo, was able to learn, negotiations in recent hours have become strained. Some talks, by the way, did not sit well within Renault. Of course, Renault is Argentina's ambassador for Colapinto. Those talks for Colapinto began after Shanghai ended, exactly as we suspected, and according to the investigations we Sport Maniaticos did, the story is coming together perfectly. There's no one without two. So if this works out, it looks like by the end of the week we'll have more hopeful news. So stay tuned. Red Bull is now changing its mind and reconsidering in a three-way negotiation with Red Bull Racing, Red Bull Racing Bulls, and Alpine, or even four if you count Williams, which was already complicated. And that would remove Liam Lawson from the grid and promote Yuki Tsunoda. You see that there are many parties involved in this negotiation. All that's missing is for them to include My Dog Era, who also really loves Colapinto. Alpine, the team for which the Argentine drives as a reserve, will always have the final word or brains to allow him to move to another team on the grid and then get him back later. This fits with what we saw in the words of Nero de Maria Catarineo, who said that if there's another loan, it seemed like he already knew, right? When he said it. Then the one who would have that responsibility is Briatore. The key to everything is that Red Bull has taken a step back. They are fully aware of Colapinto's potential, but they need to carefully examine Lawson's data. Notice that Marco said this week there is a meeting in Milton Keynes to discuss when and how we can close the gap. You should know that from what I've heard, Helmut Marko would be the most interested in getting him off Red Bull for Lawson, putting him in Racing Bulls as a last chance, or even dropping him in Japan and putting Franco Colapinto in. We'll see. We still have to find out what Christian Horner thinks, who seems to be on the opposite side. And there is the conflict that you need to understand dates back to the Horner case and all that fiasco. In other words, they first need to clean house so that when the king steps in, it's not dirty, if you see what I mean. After the Chinese Grand Prix, there will be a meeting that Verstappen will attend urgently to try to tame the RB21 with his comments. We're focusing only on the Colapinto subject here, obviously, but you already know what's behind it because you at Sport Maniaticos are well informed about Verstappen. If Lawson was on the ropes yesterday, in the last few hours, he's caught a bit of breathing room. And Red Bull is considering giving the New Zealander one last chance at the Japanese Grand Prix. That is one extra match point, one last life that would ruin a dream weekend debut for Tsunoda at home, in front of his people. If yesterday's move was to get rid of Lawson, so that Tsunoda would take his seat next to Verstappen, and for Colapinto to do the same on loan at Racing Bulls, the puzzle is now simpler. Tsunoda is the main candidate, listen up, for the Red Bull seat if Lawson is taken out of the car. That's what was planned. In that case, the New Zealander would have one last trial by fire at the winding Suzuka. Internally in the affiliate team, his name is strongly mentioned, and not so much Colapinto's anymore at Racing Bulls. His name is strongly mentioned and not so much Colapinto's anymore, which is exactly what I told you yesterday. It might be that at the beginning of the week, things don't look so good, and then by the end of the week, everything sorts itself out, or next week, and that's exactly what's happening. Essentially, we can say it's coming true. So, the thing is, there are 2 weeks left until Suzuka, as far as I know. I insist that these are not direct proofs, and I'm not confirming anything. It's just what I've investigated, which for many would be direct proof. But I want you to be informed so that directly at Suzuka, the situation might be reversed. Careful. I don't know if it'll happen at the end of the week, etc. We'll see what happens with Colapinto. We'll see what happens with Tsunoda, as that first step now seems like it could be delayed. I insist. We have to stay tuned to the news all week and next week because this could take another dramatic turn. Red Bull believes it's too soon to once again start up its driver grinder. They think 2 races might not be enough to evaluate the speed of Verstappen's teammate, who impressed in some private tests but has only a retirement in Australia and a 12th place in China in just 2 events. The feeling with the car has not been good. It seems to be designed only for the 4-time champion. Whoever else gets in it is going to suffer. And the Dutchman is not convinced about promoting Tsunoda. Did you hear that? That's what Relevo says. They don't cite any sources, but apparently he wouldn't want Tsunoda. Because of a lack of pace and maturity, he could suffer the consequences of that dark blue car, right? So, there must be some conversations there first. But frankly, in my opinion, and this is my opinion, putting Tsunoda in after Japan when you have Japan with all these people and to please Honda seems to me uglier than not putting him in at all. So I think what I've been telling you is going to happen. It goes this way now, and then in a few days, things may change. We have to stay alert, right? I already told you yesterday that each piece of news would come in its moment in pole position. Despite this last opportunity that is being considered for Lawson, there is a strong interest in Tsunoda in the corridors of Milton Keynes. Confirm sources from the team, which place high value on the sponsors following Colapinto. You already have this in the video we discussed earlier, where everything fits, right? There is strong interest in Tsunoda, they said. Sources from the team confirm they highly value the sponsors that Franco brings in. Red Bull lost market power with Perez's departure and has not recovered it with the sponsors that Lawson brings. Even so, the Argentine's option has lost ground for now, right? That's part of what I told you yesterday, and I still think that even more this is going to happen. This circumstance has led Alpine, which was considering loaning him for those 22 races so as never to lose control over him, to change its plans. Ryo Hirakawa, one of the reserves, was going to be chosen to go to Suzuka with Pierre Gasly and Ocon, while Poucher was going to do likewise in the next event in Bahrain. Colapinto was going to stay working from the factory in those races as part of the team's young driver rotation plan. In other words, Franco was not going with Alpine to those 2 races, so that everything happening from Suzuka onward makes sense in this dramatic turn of events. Note that if Colapinto, for example, had known that he was going to debut with Alpine in Miami, then it wouldn't make sense to sign or do anything with Racing Bull if they don't guarantee Japan, right? I insist this news was predicted. I said it yesterday. It has come true. So I think the next steps will also come true, and this is simply the pullback before the climb, like Bitcoin family. So then, Franco Colapinto to Racing Bulls. What are his real chances of leaving Alpine to join Red Bull's second team? La Nación, which has also been very active with the news, now specifies that all this might be postponed if Lawson does not measure up in his performance. Colapinto could take the seat at Racing Bulls that the Japanese driver Tsunoda would vacate if promoted to Red Bull. In that way, the Argentine from Pilar, Franco Colapinto, would make his debut next April 20th at the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix, between barriers, a very complicated circuit. Again, Colapinto would face quite a feat, and I'm sure he would pull it off, right? Is that going to happen in Japan, in Saudi Arabia, in Bahrain, in Miami? I don't know. If it were in Miami, well, at that point, we'd wait for Alpine, right? Everything, I insist, is that in each chapter, we are going to stay very attentive, and we'll cover it either on this secondary channel or on the other one. For now, the anticipated pullback has come to pass, and this only means we have to wait, but this smells like it's going to happen. Neither Horner nor Marco have closed the door on a possible incorporation of Colapinto, since some of the physical preparations they had begun are still underway. So that continues, the suits and so on. So there you have the idea pretty clear, right? We're talking about a figure that would greatly exceed $10 million, mainly because it wouldn't just be Colapinto's sponsors in the equation, but also the Mexican multinational from Carlos Slim, of course, in addition to the reloadable Visa payment card, Apui, that is interested in the matter, right? So you can see that the idea guiding Oliver Mid of Red Bull boss, is to turn his 2 teams into real revenue generators. And in the case of Racing Bulls, even though the Honda engines cost them very little or nothing, because they continue until the end of the year with Yuki Tsunoda's seat, they want actual cash in the Faenza team's bank account. Do you realize what's happening? Remember the video we made about Red Bull boss Oliver Mirlaf losing $1 billion since Checo left? Well, check out how that all fits perfectly. It's a figure that would exceed $10 million, mainly because it's not just the Argentine sponsors of Colapinto in the equation, but also the Mexican multinational from Carlos Slim, of course, plus the reloadable Visa payment card, Appway, that's interested in the matter. In the other video, we mentioned Visa, Cash App, Mercado Pago. Now we add Slim. Well, that's quite a sponsorship combination. If that arrives at Red Bull, they've hit the lottery. Obviously, from that pie, Briatore will take a piece and James Vowles will take a piece too. Those were some of the reasons to try to resume negotiations for Colapinto, which had stalled toward the end of last season. The Argentine would also secure a good harvest of points for Racing Bulls alongside the Frenchman Isaac Hadjar. Remember that, in the short term, that car performs better than the Alpine. On Sunday in China, Horn said, "Liam is a young guy. We have a duty to take care of him, and we'll do our best to support him." That already suggested that the opportunity could be extended a bit, right? So watch out. We're entering the murky territory. The chapter, the series, is starting to get to the point where the story is shaping up, and this is just the pullback before the push. So rest easy, family. What we've been investigating since yesterday seems to be coming true. I can't confirm it like I did with Alpine and give you an exclusive, but I do believe our investigation is on the right track, and all signs point in the same direction. Colapinto may be at Racing Bulls in the Red Bull sphere. I don't rule out some surprise from Red Bull. I don't rule out anything. Whether it happens in Japan or everything happens in Saudi Arabia or in Bahrain or as planned in Miami. I don't think so, because hurricanes, changes of plans. I think everything that's good for Colapinto, we're going to support. And if he switches to Racing Bulls in the short term, it's good for Colapinto. We want to see Colapinto in Formula One. And I believe steps are being taken, if nothing else. There have been meetings. There's been a bit of everything. And like I said, this is just a small backward step to calm the waters. Will there be another opportunity for Lawson in Japan with Red Bull? I really doubt that he'll get that chance at Red Bull. Because Japan and Tsunoda, if you do it afterward, it's almost a slight. So you might as well not do it. Because Tsunoda wants to be with his fans, right? Then it could be that Colapinto does not enter Japan. And that directly they give Lawson the chance. Lawson goes again. And if Hauger beats him, then Colapinto comes in at the next one. It's still very complicated. It's starting to shape up after the gloom. It looks like the plans we knew from our sources are being confirmed. And now we keep investigating. Family, thanks to everyone who's here. See you in the next video.